Well, great. And to that end, he became impassioned along with the greats in the plant-based world like Dr. Jean Mornish and Dr. Neil Bernard to present people with information that would be life-changing, the power of plants to heal and maintain optimal health. Dr. Klaper has shared this information while lecturing across the globe. And I had the pleasure of hearing him on several holistic holiday ST cruises, which some of you have attended as well. There I learned from Dr. Klaper some of the tips to order meals in restaurants and a polite retort to those who would be critical of our plant-based lifestyle. Dr. Klaper, I often use the simple phrase you taught me, "It works for me." Many have also heard Dr. Klaper in his lectures on the Food Revolution Summits, presented by Ocean Robbins and his dad, John, of blessed memory. John Robbins passed away a week ago. And if you haven't already, please see our Facebook page to listen to Dr. Klaper's beautiful tribute to his friend and colleague, John Robbins. And Dr. Klaper, you have our sincere condolences on the loss of your dear friend. And lastly, I'd like to share with you that Dr. Klaper continues to work in the most vital way, encouraging medical schools to add training in nutrition and the other pillars so that medical care of the present and the future can help to prevent disease and not just cure them. After more than 50 years of practicing medicine, Dr. Klaper is still influencing the medical community to help prevent and reverse disease. The title of his presentation tonight is Putting Nutrition to Work in Clinical Practice. But we are so fortunate to have Dr. Klaper with us this evening, and you will be inspired by this great man. Thank you, Dr. Klaper, for being with the Eat Smart Live Longer Club tonight.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Thank all of you for coming out on this rainy, stormy evening. And hopefully we can shed some light on some understandings and misunderstandings that will make you, that help you make wiser choices next time you're shopping in the supermarket or ordering your food in the restaurant. As you heard, I've been a primary care physician for over 50 count 'em years, and my first 10, 15 years were spent doing blood and guts medicine, emergency rooms, operating rooms, urgent care units, and I thought I would be doing that the rest of my life. But life and fate had some other plans for me that changed my perspective on medicine and healing. And as a result, for the past 5 years now, I've been going to the nation's medical schools and sharing with the residents and the medical students there and the interns some of the most powerful truths that I've learned in recent years. And I've been telling them in medical school, you spend 4 years learning about all sorts of weird and wonderful diseases from smallpox to leprosy. But let me start my slides here. Oh, that's not going to work here. I need to go back and share my slides here. Oh, someone needs to let me share my slides. Someone has to make me a host, please. Mel or someone. Okay, great. All right, thank you. Let's try it again. Okay, great. All right. Share here, and let's hide the voting meeting controls, hide the video panel, hide the meeting controls. Hope you can edit all this out afterwards. And so I've learned a few things about clinical nutrition that I'd like to share with you. It's what I share with the interns and the residents. I've been telling them that no matter what medical specialty they go into, anything from family medicine, internal medicine, emergency medicine, anesthesia, endocrinology, ENT, doesn't matter. When you walk into your waiting room and you open the door and you look to see who is waiting to see you during your clinic day, what you see is a large group of people with a small group of diseases. Most of them are going to be clinically, statistically overweight, if not clinically obese. You're going to see florid clogged arteries showing up as angina pectoris when they walk, a rampant elevated cholesterol, high blood pressure, florid type 2 diabetes, and a host of inflammatory diseases involving every organ system, from lungs to guts to joint to immune system. I tell them, welcome to Western medicine in the 21st century. Now you look into your waiting room, and who's waiting to see you? Mr. and Mrs. America, generally overweight, hypertensive, atherosclerotic, insulin resistant, and inflamed. What is happening? When I entered medicine in the 1960s, we were a different country. We have had this tsunami of obesity sweep through our population. What is happening? And that's what I want to share with you. Because when you go to medical school and you learn the treatment for these diseases, you get this dismal recitation. Obesity, well, have them eat less and move more. And now you can add some Ozempic to that. Elevated lipids, get them on statins and cross your fingers and hope they don't have their stroke when you're on call. High blood pressure, diuretics, beta blocker, the rest of their life. They will take these pills the rest of their life. Atherosclerotic disease, statins and stents and coronary artery bypass grafts. Type 2 diabetes, insulin, once on insulin, always on insulin. This is what they're told. This is what they're being told today. Asthma, they suck on their albuterol inhalers and they take their steroids. And if it's colitis or inflammatory joint disease, autoimmune disease, it's steroids and immune suppressors, Skyrizi, all of these types of medications for the rest of their lives. And what they're doing is managing symptoms. And primary care has been this relentless daily battle against these ogres of disease. High blood pressure, etiology unknown. We don't know the cause of high blood pressure, but we've got some powerful medicines to pound those pressures down. You will take these pills the rest of your life. You will never get better. You will always be a hypertensive patient. Diabetes, we don't know really what causes it. Why your pancreas is failing there, but once on insulin, always on insulin. You'll never get better. You're going to be a diabetic forever. And angina pectoris, we don't really know what makes this plaque appear on the arteries, but it's relentlessly progressive. It only gets worse, and you will never get better till we do that bypass graft or do this stent. This is what Western medicine has become. It's just managing chronic disease. It's absolutely dismal. Well, I'm here with a different message, straight from the piano keyboard of George Gershwin, who in Porgy and Bess wrote, "It ain't necessarily so." And this is exactly the reality, because every one of these are reversible diseases. I wish someone told me in medical school that high blood pressure is reversible, that type 2 diabetes is reversible, angina is reversible. It would have changed the course of my medical career. These are absolutely reversible diseases, and I will talk to you about how you can reverse these diseases. I learned when I spent 8 years on the attending staff at True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California, about an hour north of San Francisco. And at True North, we got the same river of patients with the same Western diseases from around the world, actually, but anyone who's eating the Western diet. Now, whether it's in Australia, we've got New Zealanders and Ireland, but in India and in Indonesia, they come from around the world. If they're eating the Western diet, they've got these Western diseases. But at True North, did we raise their dose of beta blockers? Did we raise their dose of insulin? Not at all. We stopped those medications because what we did, this was a residential facility. People come to True North and they stay there for weeks if necessary. And while they're there, we feed them a diet of whole plant foods. Every breakfast has a big pot of fresh oatmeal with lots of cut up fruit and sunflower seeds and slivered almonds, blueberries. Every lunch, every dinner. There are a variety of plant milks, oat milk, soy milk, almond milk. Every lunch, every dinner had big colorful salads, hearty vegetable soups, big plates of steamed green and yellow vegetables, and a generous supply of really filling entrees, no cheese burritos, no oil stir fries, hearty stews and soups and curries and chilies. And we encourage people to eat all they want. There's no portion control. There's no carb counting, no calorie counting. This is guilt-free eating. Eat till your stomach is delightfully full, and there's wonderful sweet fruits for dessert. Why can we be so generous with the portions? Because these are whole plant foods, and Mother Nature, in her wisdom, made the foods that grow in the garden, the grains, beans, greens, fruits, vegetables, chemically, they're fiber and water. That's basically what's on your plate. So if you've got the veggie stir fry or the broccoli, it's mostly fiber and water. Well, the pee out the water, you poop out the fiber, it doesn't stick to you. And that's the joy of it. If you go back for a third bowl of vegetable soup, who cares? It doesn't matter. It's gonna pass right on through without adding to your calorie burden. So this is guilt-free eating. This is joyful eating. And the changes we saw as this food worked their way through these people's systems day after day, week after week, the changes were nothing short of spectacular. Emily came in almost 100 pounds overweight on 30 units of insulin, two medications for blood pressure. She stayed with us for a number of weeks, but also we don't want these people to eat this healthy food, lose the weight, improve their general health, but then go home and start eating the same foods that got them in trouble in the first place, the burgers and the buffalo wings and the pepperoni pizzas. It's shocking how quickly the beneficial changes reverse and come right back. So while they're at True North, we give these folks cooking lessons. And it's not to turn them into gourmet chefs. This is basic survival cooking, how to boil rice, how to make oatmeal, how to steam vegetables, how to get a steady stream of delicious whole plant foods going in their home so they can continue the benefits that this kind of eating style will produce in them. And so Emily left, and 11 months later sent us this picture, Dr. Klaper. Not only have I lost the weight, but I lost my diabetes, I'm off insulin, and I've lost my hypertension, lost medications. When the dark green leafy vegetables that are full of magnesium, potassium, when these minerals work their way into the walls of the arteries, the artery walls relax and they dilate, and so blood pressure comes down. And not only can we get these people off their medication for blood pressure, you have to get them off. If not, they'll stand up and pass out on you. So they'll take these pills for the rest of their life. Nonsense. It is routine for us to get these people off blood pressure medication. Now, it's an anti-inflammatory diet, as Carl found out. He came in not only overweight, but with severe psoriatic arthritis. His joints gave him agony every time he moved. Um, he learned how to eat plant-based at True North, went home 18 months later, sent us this picture. He obviously spent a little time in the gym, but it's an anti-inflammatory diet. He wrote Dr. Klaper, not only did I lose the weight, but I'm pain-free. I'm off my anti-inflammatories. This food has really saved my life. With all the wonderful fiber in the beans and the grains and the fruits and the vegetables, these folks have their first good bowel movement in years, and that improves their outlook on the whole universe. And they start passing these big, soft, easy to pass stools. And so diverticulitis often resolves. Skin conditions get better. Eli had very severe eczema in the back of his knees, back of his elbows. We watched that clear as well as his excess weight melt away. And Ali had severe asthma. He was using his albuterol inhaler several times a day. He learned how to eat plant-based. 2 years later, sent us his picture, Dr. Klaper. Now he lost my weight, but I lost my asthma as well. They're sleeping better. And these people get off their medications. These are reversible diseases, the most exciting understanding in all of clinical medicine. It dwarfs everything else. The latest cancer therapies, that the major chronic killer diseases are reversible. This is the most exciting news in medicine. So when we talk about reversing disease, what are we talking about? This is not California woo-woo stuff. We're talking about remission of clinical symptoms where the lungs stop wheezing, the joints stop hurting, they get clinically better. but also their laboratory results normalize. Their inflammatory markers come down to normal. Their lipid panels normalize here. This is what happens on a diet of whole plant foods. Do they have to be completely vegan? No, but the majority of what disappears down their gullet should be whole plant foods that grew out of the garden, and the body knows what to do with it. So why does this work? What are we looking at? This is the most remarkable transformation in medicine. How is it happening? That's what I want to share with you, how we can put this wonderful transformation to work in everybody's life, including yours. As I became a student of the effects of plant-based nutrition on clinical disease, I came to understand, as the journal articles were telling us, that these 9 diseases that most primary care doctors spend most of their careers treating, now the clogged arteries, diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, autoimmune disease, all of these will respond to a diet of whole plant foods. And at the end of this talk, we're going to take a hop, skip, and a jump through the medical literature, and I will show you what is showing up in the medical journals these days that gives validation to this remarkable understanding. So let's explore some of the mechanisms involved in this remarkable transformative process. We've got basically the same digestive system that our gorilla cousins have, and they're up in the trees all day eating leaves and fruits and vegetation. They grow these magnificent muscular bodies, and they don't develop clogged arteries. They don't develop type 2 diabetes. It's a natural food for plant-eating hominids. We've got basically the same jaw joints, the same digestive system. Do we follow the example of our plant-eating hominid cousins? No, the Western diet has devolved into a steady stream of cooked animal flesh, along with dairy products soaked in sugars and salt and oils and processing chemicals. This is the food stream that most Americans run through their bloodstream meal after meal, day after day, year after year. And it turns out this is the driving force behind much of our chronic disease burden. I wish when I was a medical student going into outpatient clinic, some attending physician, some chief resident had sat me down and said, look, you're going to outpatient clinic. You're going to see this steady river of patients sitting in front of you in bodies that are not healthy. They are going to be overweight, hypertensive, diabetic, clogged up and inflamed, and they want you, doctor, to do something that's going to help them. You need to understand why they are sitting in these bodies that are so racked with disease. So we said, let's get real about what the daily diet really does to our physiology. This is not a subtle process. It's visible to the naked eye. I wish you pointed out that if you eat a meal of whole plant foods, you have a colorful salad, a bowl of vegetable soup, steamed greens, a little sweet potato, no oil stir fry. You have a meal like this. And if an hour later I were to sneak up on you with a needle and a syringe in my hand, and when you weren't looking, I drew 5 cc's of blood into a red top glass tube, let the blood clot, put it into a centrifuge and spin it down, and pulled that tube out of the centrifuge, what I would see is an appearance like this. The red clot goes to the bottom, and the liquid part of the blood, the serum, floats up to the top. And the serum is crystal clear. You can read newsprint through normal serum. This is what your blood should look like after you eat a healthy plant-based meal. Yay. But you have a standard Western meal. You have bacon and eggs for breakfast. You have a cheeseburger for lunch, fried chicken for dinner. You have dairy during the day. You have meals like this. And all the saturated fat in the egg yolks and the beef and the cheese and the chicken fat and the dairy fat, all that fat oozes out into your blood. And for the next 5, count them, 5 hours, your blood looks like this. This milky appearance, this is called lipemia. The word lipo is fat, emia is in the blood. This is fat in the blood. Postprandial means after eating. And so this is the fat in the blood that appears after eating a fatty meal. What is this stuff? It's mostly triglycerides and saturated fat, some cholesterol. It's largely the fat of the animal this person just ate. And I was serious about that 5 hour number. Now, not everybody shows the fat this optically densely, but everybody has a wave of fat that goes through your bloodstream after you eat a fatty meal. How can you not? Where else is it going to go? And that 5 hour number is really significant. Here's a classic study. They gave someone a fatty meal at hour zero, and they drew blood once an hour for 6 hours. They took those six blood tubes and put them one after another and into an instrument to measure how fatty the blood is getting. And you can see the blood getting fattier and fattier and fattier. It takes the liver about 5 hours to begin to clear the fat out of the blood. And during these 5 hours, evil things are happening in the blood. Your bad atherogenic cholesterol is going up. The blood becomes more viscous. It's thicker. It has the thickness, the viscosity of light cream. And thick blood sticks together, does not deliver oxygen and nutrients to the tissues as well. And it takes a higher pressure to force viscous blood through your capillary bed. So blood pressure goes up. As all the fat, the triglycerides, flows through the fat stores in the abdomen, it sticks there, so obesity increases. And as I'll show you, the fat works its way into liver and muscle cells, and it interferes with the insulin receptors. So insulin receptor resistance goes up, and so blood sugars go up. And the saturated fats are pro-inflammatory, and so inflammatory reactions are fanned throughout the body. This is what happens for the 5 hours eating the standard Western meal. And the reality is, hunger is not tolerated in our society. If people get it all munchy, if they're at home, you stick your head in the fridge for last night's dinner leftovers. If you're out and you get a little hungry, you head for the convenience store or the restaurant, and another wave of fat goes to the bloodstream. And most people are keeping their blood fatty all day. The stuff never really clears out of the bloodstream. Well, you keep your blood fatty for 20, 30, 40 years. You can't be shocked now when some adverse changes start showing up in your body. Because even though I focused on the fat in the blood, there is more than fat in that bloodstream after such a meal. What floods through the bloodstream is what I call the postprandial red tide of molecules that each cause damage in their own way to tissues throughout the body. As I said, there's a wave of saturated fat, but the sugars and the soft drinks and the white flour buns and the desserts, etc., sticks to proteins all over the body and oxidizes them. I'll show you what that does. Fragments of animal muscle get into the bloodstream, setting off immune reactions. The salt I'll show you in a minute not only raises blood pressure, but sets off immune reactions. Now, when you grill the burger, fry the chicken, broil the steak, you're oxidizing cholesterol and proteins that are, they create free radicals. These are atoms missing an electron, so they will rip electrons off your tissues, off your DNA, off your cell membranes. Advanced glycation end products are teeming with free radicals. I'll show you what they do. Emulsifiers keep the ice cream soft in your mouth, but they also dissolve the mucus lining of your intestine, increasing gut leakiness. Oxidized cholesterol, again, missing an electron, penetrates into the walls of the arteries, sets off plaque. I'll show you, these are all meat-based contaminants. I'll show you what they do. This is the red tide that floods through your tissues throughout the body after every meat and dairy Western-based meal. It's a fatty tide, it's a salty tide, it's a sugary tide, it's full of antigenic proteins, it forms acid from all the sulfates and phosphates. It damages your genes, so it's mutagenic, it sets off cancers, it clogs your arteries, sets off inflammation, it disrupts enzyme reactions throughout the body. This is the truth of the Western diet. Let's look individually some of these problematic substances. Salt in the diet, we eat too much of it. It's recommended that we eat only 2,300 milligrams of sodium. Most of us are eating a third more than that. As I said, it not only stiffens your arteries and makes your kidneys retain fluid that raises your blood pressure, that puts you at risk for congestive heart failure, atherosclerotic vascular disease, myocardial infarctions, strokes, kidney failure. But also, we're learning that high salt diets turn on immune cells that open the door to autoimmune diseases like lupus. Who knew? but as a recovering saltaholic myself, I'm very concerned about that. So in recent years, I've been learning how to entertain my tongue with non-salty flavorings. I'm squeezing lemon juice on my greens here. I've become a big fan of sweet balsamic vinegars. We use celery juice in the soups for sodium content. There's a wonderful salt substitute called Benson's Table Tasty. I have no connection with the company, but it's nutritional yeast with some dried herbs. It tastes salty, but there's no sodium in it. But if you too are a big salt fan, you want to think about throttling back, and there are ways to do it. Then there's sugars. Now, everybody's got a sweet tooth, and it's not that you can never have anything sweet. And I have no problem with a teaspoon of maple syrup in your tea as a flavoring. That's what it's for. I'm talking about eating sugar as a food. It was never meant to be eaten as a food. When you eat even a vegan donut or a cupcake or a candy bar, you are flooding your tissues with grams and grams of fructose, maltose, dextrose. They stick to proteins all over the body. It glycosylates proteins and it damages them. This is called the Maillard reaction when you combine sugar with protein and then heat it up. The bakers do this in their oven and they produce these nice crusty breads and cookies. Now, the problem is when you heat up these glycosylated proteins, they form these advanced glycation end products. So what? They're teeming with free radicals. They're molecular terrorists. They damage the proteins all around them. And it's one thing to create these AGEs on the surface of a cookie or a French baguette, but you don't want to run this reaction on the crystalline proteins of the lens of your eye. It's a great way to give yourself cataracts. You don't want to glycosylate, and then your own body heat will run the Maillard reaction on the elastin fibers in your skin, turn your skin into an old suitcase. And you sure don't want to run the Maillard reaction on the inner lining of the blood vessels in your brain. For this reason, we all have a fear of Alzheimer's. Well, there's a big vascular component to Alzheimer's. This is not a disease that falls out of a tree on you at age 50. This is the result of 50, 60, 70 years of damaging the inner lining of the blood vessels in the brain. Up here are the brain arteries of two men who died at the same age, but the man in the upper panel did not have Alzheimer's dementia. When the man in the lower panel did have Alzheimer's dementia, you can see how thickened and edematous and inflamed his artery walls are. And so you're as old as your arteries, it's been said. And if you want to avoid Alzheimer's, don't be running a lot of sugars and oxidized fats through the blood vessels in your brain. Now, everything I just showed you up to here is can be done with vegan junk food, okay? And so just because you're vegan doesn't necessarily mean you're eating healthy. But once you add meat to the diet, and most Americans are not vegan, most people eat a piece of animal flesh 2, 3 times a day, that adds an entire new layer of damaging molecules that run through your tissues with every meal. Again, cooking the meat oxidizes cholesterol that increases the atherogenicity of the meal. That the oxidized cholesterol molecules work their way into the walls of the arteries, setting off plaque formation. Now, when you broil the steak and grill the burger, you're creating these aldehydes that damage your genes. They flow through your cells where your DNA lies unfolded and they damage your DNA. You're just having lunch. You don't want to go be damaging your DNA, but that's what a meat-based meal does. New 5GC, this is a sialic acid that only animals make. It sets off inflammatory reactions throughout the body. And our paleo friends and our carnivore friends are giving themselves a shot of New 5GC 2, 3 times a day. Then there's endotoxin. What is that stuff? Well, anyone who spent time in the intensive care unit sees people dying of endotoxic shock. What is it? Where does it come from? It comes from the slaughterhouse. Now, all animals pass through the slaughterhouse, even grass-fed organic beef. And as the carcass has the digestive system removed, you inevitably get spillage of the gut contents. You can take a culture swab from the microbiology lab and swipe any cutting surface in this meat packing plant, and you'll get a luxurious growth of E. coli and Salmonella and Shigella and Enterococcus, Clostridium, Pseudomonas, the whole rogues gallery of enteric bacteria. So there's a coating of these bacteria on the surface of every steak and chop and chicken breast that leaves the meat packing plant. The piece of meat is wrapped in clear plastic, and in your supermarket's meat cakes, the ultraviolet light shines down and kills the bacteria. That's nice. But as the bacteria die, their cell walls break apart, and that releases this nasty lipopolysaccharide called endotoxin. What does it do? Well, take a walk around this daisy of death, and you'll see what endotoxin does. It releases free radicals, it depresses your heart muscle, releases histamine, makes your blood clot. And endotoxin is heat stable. Grilling the burger, frying the steak does not get rid of the endotoxin. So again, our paleo friends and our carnivore friends are giving themselves a shot of endotoxin 2, 3 times a day. And endotoxin makes your gut leaky, and it allows food proteins and bacteria to leak into the bloodstream, setting off joint inflammation, nasty stuff, endotoxin. You don't want endotoxin getting from your gut into your bloodstream. What may help that transfer happen? Saturated fat. Well, why are you eating the burger? What makes that burger so juicy? The saturated fat makes that burger taste good. Well, that's the very substance that's helping endotoxin get into your bloodstream. It's a nasty malignant synergy. TMAO builds up from the bacteria in the gut, summoned up by a meat-based diet. It drives cholesterol into the artery wall. When you cook meat, you create cancer-causing substances that rub on the stomach wall, giving gastric cancers, and in the colon wall, giving GI cancers. Heme iron makes red meat red. It increases the risk of strokes and cancers. Now, again, cooking the meat creates these advanced glycation end products that promote tissue aging and vascular disease. The animals in the feedlot are fed bushels of grains that are sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. They drink water with cadmium and mercury and lead in it. They're given hormones and antibiotics as growth promoters. All these substances bioaccumulate in the animal's flesh. So when you bite into that burger or into that finger-licking good chicken breast, you're getting all the concentrated pesticides and herbicides that animal was fed during its life. And now the meat supply is permeated with microplastics. These are the microscopic shards of plastic from the fishing nets that are breaking down in the ocean. How does that get in the meat? It turns out that half the fish catch is not sold in fish markets. It's ground up and added to cattle feed and pig feed and chicken feed. So what's happening in the ocean is contaminating the meat in the supermarket. And once these microplastics get in their body, we don't know what they do. They don't break down. They can't be doing anything good. And finally, the cows in the dairy have all been genetically modified. They're all pregnant now. They're all carrying their next calf. It didn't used to be that way. But now they're sucking milk off large pregnant bovines. And so the milk is full of estrogens and growth factors that if a woman has an early breast cancer, a guy's got an early prostate cancer, and they're eating cheese and milk, it's like throwing gasoline on a fire. This is the truth of the Western meat-based diet. One reason we're getting so obese and sick. And do the math. Eat 3 times a day over the course of a year. It's over 1,000 times. You've flooded your tissues with the red tide. There are contaminants almost constantly in the blood. Well, you keep running a fuel filled with all these toxic byproducts, endotoxin, new 5GC. It's like putting kerosene, diesel fuel, in a gasoline burning engine. You can't be shocked when the spark plugs cake up with carbon. Well, you put the fuel of a mountain lion, a flesh-based diet, into our herbivorous digestive system. Now, you can't be shocked when disease states start showing up. And I tell the residents this turns into real medical concerns when you go into outpatient clinic or your private practice and you open the door in the exam room and you see the man with the clogged arteries from his angina, giving angina, or the asthmatic woman pulling on her albuterol inhaler, the man with diabetes injecting insulin, the woman grieving over her acne-scarred skin. Etiology unknown, that's what the textbooks say, that's what the professors say, and it's true. We've not teased out every last interaction between every gene and every enzyme, and there's a host of discoveries that are lying in wait to be discovered that will help. But to think that this research is going to result in the creation of a mesocillin, the magic pill that you give to people and restores them to glowing health, just not going to happen. The food effects over time equal the health effects, and we've got to come to grips with this. So finally, I tell the young doctors, there comes that day when your patient's getting out of the shower and they catch a glimpse of themselves in the bathroom mirror and they don't like what they see. They don't like their big protuberant abdomen. They don't like their sore, swollen joints. They don't like their medicine cabinet full of pills. And that voice in their head says, I can't keep doing this. I got to change something. And they show up in your office that week saying, Doc, tell me what I need to do to get my health back. What is the one thing I can do to help me start moving in the right direction? And if the doctor is at all nutrition aware these days, if they've come to any of my lectures, the one thing they should be telling their patient is to the greatest extent possible, start consuming a food stream of mostly whole plant foods. You don't have to be complete vegan if you want to put a little shredded chicken on a salad once a week, not 3 times a day. Okay. But when the majority of what goes down your gullet should have grown out of the garden and be recognizable as such. When the person makes that change, and a lot of people have to go gradually. That's fine as long as they keep moving in that direction. But many people say they do it all at once. Doc, I can't eat this stuff anymore. I went home, I cleaned out my fridge, cleaned out the pantry, I went shopping. I've got lots of rice and beans and greens and fruits and vegetables in my fridge. And I'm making these wonderful stews and soups and curries. Once they make that change, and let's just say for our argument that the person has made a complete 100% change, and to illustrate the physiology, here's what happens. The first and most important change is that the red tide stops. There is respite from that every 4-hour flood of disrupting chemicals. Every cell in your body has instructions about how to repair itself. Do you know that on your DNA strands, in every cell where your genes are laid out like a string of pearls, on your DNA strands, you have globular proteins that spend all day going up and down your DNA strands looking for damage. They're called DNA editing enzymes, and they're looking for mismatched nucleotides. When they find them, they fix them. They don't ask your permission, they just fix your DNA. What a wonderful, miraculous mechanism. When I first read about that in cellular physiology, I put the book down and I applauded. That is so brilliant. But those mechanisms can't function optimally if every 4 hours this tide of sugars and salt and oxidized animal muscle floods through the tissue. Well, now these repair mechanisms can function fully. And as a result, here's what happens. The red tide molecular marauders disappear, and instead they are replaced by an entirely different set of molecules that flood through every cell in your body with every salad and soup and bowl of green vegetables. Let's take a look at the wonderful changes that transition from a plant-based diet, from an animal-based diet to a plant-based diet achieves in your body. First of all, it's a high water content diet. All the soups and the salads and the fruits and the vegetables, they're full of water. And that previously viscous, thick blood now starts becoming less viscous. Blood viscosity goes down. It's clear that people who stop eating meat have significantly lower blood viscosity, and more free-flowing blood floods through the capillary beds, bringing a tide of antioxidants and phytonutrients that promote tissue repair, that quench free radicals. That alone is a huge change. But a wonderful positive synergy kicks in because all the dark green leafy vegetables you're now eating, the kale and broccoli and chard and spinach, are full of nitrates that increase the amount of nitric oxide in the artery walls. And the nitric oxide makes the arteries dilate just a little bit. It's a very subtle dilation, but that has two wonderful effects. One, it lowers the blood pressure. The diameter of the pipe increases, the pressure inside the pipe goes down. But also, you get this very subtle vasodilation, a law in physics kicks in called Poiseuille's law. And Poiseuille's law says that as a pipe gets larger, the volume of liquid flowing through that pipe increases dramatically by the fourth power of the increase of the radius. And so that means that just for example, if the radius of the artery increases by a factor of 2, the amount of blood flowing through that artery increases not by a factor of 2, but a factor of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 by a factor of 16. You get this huge increase in blood flow. So that sends this surge of oxygenated, nutrient-rich blood flowing through capillary beds throughout the body, brain, heart, liver, kidneys. That alone is a healing force of great magnitude. When you pull out the animal flesh, you're pulling out the arachidonic acid, and that's the main driver of inflammatory prostaglandins. And now all the fats in the diet are coming from plant oils, many of which are in the omega-3 family, and they have an anti-inflammatory quality. And so you've changed the entire inflammatory balance of all the tissues in the body from a pro-inflammatory to an anti-inflammatory tissue milieu. That is huge. And previously, as a person's eating all their sugars and fried foods and processed foods, they're loading up their tissues with all these free radicals. Now, again, these are atoms that are missing an electron. They're damaging the tissues around them. The abbreviation is ROS, reactive oxygen species, but these are the free radicals. Well, all these colorful fruits and vegetables are colorful because the colors created by antioxidants molecules that quench free radicals, that put out the oxidative fire. And so now the oxidative damage being done in the tissue subsides. When you change the food going through the intestinal tract, you're going to change the microbes that live in that intestine. If you're eating meat and dairy, you are fostering the growth of some nasty microbes from the Firmicutes family, not friendly microbes. They damage your gut wall, they set off cancers. Well, you pull out the meat and the dairy. Now the food stream is made of high fiber beans and greens and fruits and vegetables. That's going to foster the growth of beneficial bacteria like Prevotella species. And they not only have an anti-inflammatory property to them, but also, as an extra bonus, the Prevotella microbes put out neurotransmitters that make you feel better. They put out serotonin and oxytocin and norepinephrine, and these are feel-good chemicals. People often say, my mood improved ever since I went plant-based. That's not a placebo effect. That's a result that's a gift from your refurbished microbiome. When you stop eating other animals' cholesterol, your own blood lipids are going to improve and they're going to become less likely to form plaque in your arteries. You're obviously going to be consuming much less endotoxin, so leaky gut subsides. Your skin oils are going to be now made of plant oils, so they don't smell as bad. A lot of guys notice their body odor changes for the better as they go plant-based. When you stop eating the dairy products made from pregnant cow milk, and estrogen levels subside. Women notice their breast lumps get smaller, their heavy periods subside. Guys have their prostate glands start shrinking instead of getting bigger. Kidney function improves. The vaunted high protein diet is not gentle to the kidneys. When these bodybuilders and the meat eaters flood their kidneys with all these amino acids, it forces the kidney filter membranes to go into a state of hyperfiltration, and it's like driving your car in passing gear to Seattle, and it damages the kidney filters as the years go by. The asthmatic folks notice their lung secretions get less viscous, and so they wheeze less. And white blood cell counts start coming down, not because the bone marrow is failing, but because we're not praying it with endotoxin 3 times a day. These are just some of the profound changes that are experienced by these key biological systems in the body. So much so that if someone asked me, doctor, in a word, when you go from an animal-based food stream to a plant-based food stream, what changes? What changes when you go from an animal-based food stream to plant-based food stream? What changes? Everything changes. It is a different physiology. The blood is less viscous. The lipids are different. The immune system is different. The microbiome is different. The hormone, everything is different. And it changes, it transforms from a body whose every organ systems are on the edge of promoting disease to organ systems that are now stable and capable of self-healing. It's the most profound change in medicine, and that's why I can show you all these before and after pictures of Carl and Eli and Emily. And this is why they experience these remarkable changes. And these changes can happen in your body too. And we invite you to do that. And I could spend 3 lectures going through each one of these organ systems to explore why they all improve with the transition to a plant-based diet. Don't have time to do that. But can you get enough protein? Absolutely. All the grains and beans and nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetables, they're full of protein. Now, you eat 3 meals a day of whole plant foods, especially emphasizing legumes. What are legumes? Anything in a pod is a legume. Beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils. They're full of protein. It's easy to get 70, 80 grams of high-grade protein. Protein deficiency should not be a concern in a whole plant diet. So what I'm going to do is take 2 of the most common conditions, clogged arteries leading to heart attacks and strokes, as well as type 2 diabetes, and show you how and why a plant-based diet will reverse these diseases. Disease reversal in cardiology. Most cardiologists don't believe this is possible. The description is relentlessly progressive. Once they get angina, they're going to inevitably need a stent or a bypass, because the reality is that every 40 seconds in this country, 1,000 times a day, one of our fellow Americans grabs their chest, falls over with a heart attack, and dies because a plaque in their artery walls has torn open and set off a clot that stopped the blood flow downstream. And if this is heart muscle, that heart muscle dies, setting off fatal arrhythmias like ventricular fibrillation. If it happens in the brain, person suffers a stroke. And again, this is so common. Every 40 seconds, this happens in our country. Is he just a bit, well, tough luck. He was born with high LDL levels. Really? Well, he wasn't taking the statins. That's about it. It was a statin deficiency. Doctor, get serious. What's really happening, of course, you're as old as your arteries, and this man's been eating the red tide food 3 times a day for 50 years. He's damaged the endothelial lining in his arteries from all the cooked animal muscle and the oxidized protein and the AGEs. The fryer oil in the onion rings and the French fries oxidizes the artery lining. The uric acid from the meat, the high fructose corn syrup and the desserts and the drinks. This is the red tide damaging the artery walls. And the cholesterol that gets oxidized when you grill the burger and broil the steak and fry the chicken gets into the walls of the arteries. And no wonder the cardiologists feel this is relentlessly progressive. Uh, that's right, doctor. You don't talk to them about changing their diet. That is what you're going to see. But it doesn't have to be that way. This is eminently reversible through a low-fat plant-based diet. And a whole plant diet is naturally low in fats outside of avocados and nuts and seeds. Now, all the grains, beans, fruits, vegetables, they're naturally low in fat. You have to go out of your way to avoid the fats. And as Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn demonstrated in his remarkable studies, this is so reversible. He followed almost 200 people. All of them had severe artery disease. They all had stents and heart attacks. He put them on a whole food plant-based diet for 4 years. During those 4 years, 60 of them were expected to suffer a major adverse cardiac event, a heart attack, stroke, sudden death. The folks who followed his diet, essentially none of them, there was one stroke, but essentially all of them in those 4 years were free. Those who followed the diet were free of any of these adverse effects. This is the most powerful disease reversing program known to medicine up to this point. What is his program? It's a complete whole food plant-based diet, and that's the most important thing. The red tide stops. It's absolutely free of meat, dairy, oils, sugars, etc. But also, Dr. Esselstyn wants the person to eat a fist-sized helping of dark leafy greens 3, 4 times a day. Why does he do that? Have us do that? Because these greens are full of nitrates and antioxidants and they're in the intestine. If you're eating them every 4 or 5 hours, they're pretty much constantly in the intestine, and they act like time release capsules, steadily drizzling a stream of antioxidants out down into the bloodstream. And as the weeks and months go by, here's the artery wall, and the red tide has stopped on a plant-based diet. And the greens are releasing these antioxidants that quench free radicals. They work their way into the wall of the artery, into the plaque in the artery wall. Here's the free radicals that get neutralized. As a result, the plaque starts to break up and dissolve. The macrophages that make up the plaque, they leave, they outmigrate. And as a result, the plaques get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that damaged endothelial lining reestablishes itself, not by magic, but because the bone marrow is constantly putting out showers of stem cells that reupholster the inner lining of the arteries like new paving stones. And as a result, and many of you have seen this arteriogram already, but you get these remarkable reversals. Here's a man's heart artery, left anterior descending artery. It's filled with angiography dye. The whole artery should be this wide going all the way down, but in this rat-eaten portion, these are atherosclerotic plaques that are encroaching into the blood flow channel. And you can see how choked down his blood supply is. He had severe angina, chest pain every time he walked a few yards. He went on Dr. Esselstyn's program, wasn't going to have a stent or a bypass. 29 months of salads and soups and steamed veggies and curries and chilies going through his arteries, filled with antioxidants, lots of green vegetables, melts away the plaque. And 29 months later, this artery turns into this artery. Same patient, same artery, but you can see how reversible this disease is proving to be. And as the plaques start to melt away, Poiseuille's law kicks in. And as a result, you get these remarkable changes. This is a perfusion scan. This is a heart muscle showing blood flow. Red is good blood flow. You can see how choked down his blood supply is. But after only 2 weeks, 14 days on a plant-based diet, the plaques begin to melt away a little bit. The artery walls begin to relax a little bit. Poiseuille's law kicks in. And this perfusion scan turns into this perfusion scan. People get dramatic changes in a very short order. So much so that it was in 1977 that I first read this study from Dr. Ellis describing a 65-year-old man with severe angina, had to stop every 9 or 10 paces, started on a plant-based diet. 6 months later, he's climbing mountains in the Lake District of England with no angina pain. This is how quickly the body can respond. What wonderful, glorious news this is. And arteries all over the body, not just in the heart, but all over the body, open up, much to the delight of people at home. And I'm sure this woman is absolutely overjoyed that his retinal arteries in his eyes are now delivering more blood to his eyeballs and improving his vision. But seriously, many things, including erectile dysfunction, can improve. And as I promised you, the medical literature is now erupting. It's hard to open a medical journal without seeing some article about the benefits of a whole plant diet as a disease reversal agent here, angina claudication, but also, whoops, yep, didn't want to do that, sorry. But also high blood pressure, heart failure, kidney failure, they all improve as those arteries begin to open up. And it forces the doctor to learn this wonderful skill called deprescribing. How do you get these people off their statins, off their beta blockers? There's a lovely art. It's not hard to learn. And it's wonderful to be able to get these people off these medications. People who want to learn more about this are welcome to go to my website, drklaper.com, and download my health supporting eating plan. So, yes, this is a reversible disease. What glorious news that is. But I've had many cardiologists stand in the back of the room with their arms folded and say, that's all very nice, doc, but I don't know anything about nutrition. I don't have time to do this counseling. It's easier for me to give these folks a prescription for statins and a shot of Repatha, and don't bother me with this diet stuff. Yeah, but the problem is that statins don't address the inflammation, the insulin resistance, the elevated triglycerides, the damage to the capillaries. And it's a very modest improvement. Over 5 years, you just get a 1 to 2% reduction in major adverse cardiac events. And the real problem is that you can pound down these cholesterol levels, you can make their numbers look better. But what you're really doing by loading up their, you're giving them a false sense of security. Oh, my cholesterol's down to 110. I can eat all the meat I want. And they fall into the same trap that the paleo folks, the carnivore folks do. And loading up your intestine full of meat 3 times a day in my book is a recipe for an epidemic of colon cancer. All the TMAO and the oxidized cholesterol is going to still give these folks heart attacks and strokes. All the endotoxins going to give them a leaky gut. They're going to get lupus and autoimmune diseases. All the fat, as I'll show you in a minute, are going to clog up their insulin receptors. They're going to get type 2 diabetes. All the bacteria, the Firmicutes bacteria that the meat is going to spawn is going to give them colitis and Crohn's disease. And I showed you what a meat-heavy diet and all the free radicals and the AGEs do to the blood vessels in the brain. This is a recipe for an epidemic of cancers, heart attack, stroke, autoimmune disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and dementia. We are not carnivorous apes. We are plant-eating hominids, and we violate that natural law at our own peril. So this is the most potent disease-reversing strategy you can employ no matter what condition you may be trying to overcome. We should take this to heart, literally. How about diabetes or now insulin resistance, glucose intolerance? What's going on there? Oh, diabetes, sugar. Oh, it's those bad sugar, those bad carbs. That's the problem. Sugar, sugar, sugar. Avoid those bad carbs. And people go on low carb diets to try and keep those blood sugars down. I tell those people you are looking in the wrong direction. The high blood sugars are not the problem, they're the result. The problem is not the high sugars, that's the tail of the dog. The problem are the fats. You keep your blood fatty from a steady stream of bacon and eggs, cheeseburgers, fried chicken, month after month, year after year. You keep your blood fatty. And all that fat works its way into your muscle cells and your liver cells. It's called intramyocellular lipid. Intra means inside, myo is muscle, cell is cell, fat and lipid are fat. This is fat in the muscle cells. And it starts clogging up the insulin receptors. I'm showing it to you in a drawn out diagram. This is not theoretical. Here's what it looks like under the microscope. This is striated muscle, and all this black stuff here, this is intramyocellular lipid. This is fat in the muscle cell that does not belong there. And it's clogging up the insulin receptors. Here it is under the electron microscope. Intramyocellular lipid is clogging up the insulin receptors. It blocks these 2 key enzymes. Normally, when sugar shows up in the blood, insulin is released by the pancreas, and as insulin plugs into the insulin receptor, it activates 2 kinase enzymes, this one here and this one here, that activates the mechanism that pulls sugar into the cells. But if your cells are full of fats, that gets oxidized and it inhibits these 2 enzymes. So insulin knocks on the door, but nobody answers. And as a result, the sugar piles up in the blood. So you wind up with high blood sugars, but the primary problem isn't the sugar, it's the fat. And there's now going to be a strong medical literature supporting that intramyocellular lipid is the driving force behind insulin resistance. And here we are back in the muscle cell. Here's the insulin receptors clogged up with intramyocellular lipid on the inside. But if the person happens to be obese, if you've got a big abdomen, that adds another layer of insulin resistance. Why? And I'm not fat shaming anybody. I'm talking physiology about obesity. People say, oh, you can be healthy at any weight. No, you can't. Why? Because the fat in the abdomen, the visceral fat that surrounds the intestine and liver, this stuff is not inert. It's metabolically active. The visceral fat pumps out inflammatory molecules called cytokines, interleukin 1, interleukin 6, and they flow through the body and they set off inflammation all over the body. Obesity is a state of inflammation. It's called metabolic inflammation. This is recognized obesity-related inflammation drives insulin resistance. And so here we are in the obese person's muscles. The insulin receptors are clogged up on the inside by intramyocellular lipid, but they're interfered with on the outside by the inflammatory cytokines. No wonder so many obese people develop type 2 diabetes. They're clogged up both on the inside and the outside. Well, the good news is this is reversible. You get yourself on a diet of whole plant foods that are normally low in fat, and guess what happens? The fat that's already in the muscle cell gets burned for energy. The inflammatory cytokines, they fade away. And as a result, the insulin receptors open up. Your own insulin from your own pancreas starts working just fine, and blood sugars come down. And not only can you get these people off their insulin, you have to get them off now before they have low blood sugar reactions. And many studies have now shown that a whole food plant-based diet will reverse type 2 diabetes. When you compare the plant-based diet with the Diabetes Association diet, the folks on the plant-based diet, their blood sugars come down more, they lose more body weight, their bad lipids improve more, their kidneys heal, they leak less protein out in their kidneys. It's a healing diet, even compared to the Diabetes Association diet that allows meat and dairy. Here's Jim. He was 100 pounds overweight on 35 units of insulin. Went whole food plant-based. Took him 2 years, but he sent this picture, Doc, I've lost the fat, lost the diabetes, and now I'm running marathons without any medication. You too can have these same benefits. And again, makes the doctor learn how to de-prescribe insulin and de-prescribe metformin. What a wonderful skill to have to learn. You know, we're in the age of Ozempic. You know, give me that shot now. Give me those pills. Let me melt this fat away. But the problem is that people, it works for a while, works for 6 months, and then the weight loss plateaus. And you start out very obese, you wind up moderately obese, but it does not make obesity go away. And the sad part is at $1,000 a month with a bunch of side effects, none of it's necessary. All people have to do is change their diet to one of whole plant foods. As I said earlier, you're basically filling your belly up with fiber and water, and it doesn't stick to you. It goes right on through. And the fat melts away about 2 pounds a day to start with, and it goes down about a pound a day after a few weeks. And the food tastes great, curries and chilies and stews and soups. This is what we should be doing instead of relying on these expensive and problematic medicines. um, oh, sorry. Oh, here we are. Great. Um, it's an anti-inflammatory diet. All of these fruits and vegetables are filled with anti-inflammatory agents. Lupus and autoimmune diseases improve. If you know anyone with lupus or autoimmune diseases, have them get this wonderful book called Goodbye Autoimmune Disease by Dr. Brooke Goldner. She's a physician who had bad lupus. She is getting strokes and from the blood clots. And she basically put her own lupus into remission, and she shares her secrets with you here. It's a whole food plant-based diet. The red tide, as it sloshes through the intestine, is not gentle with the gut wall, and all these red tide marauders inflame the gut wall. You can see what they'll be doing. They set off Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Guess what? Vegetarian vegan diets improve the gut microbes, and they in turn will improve Crohn's disease and colitis. The asthmatic folks wheeze less on a whole food plant-based diet. It's an anti-inflammatory diet. The folks with the psoriasis and the eczema, they notice improvements. Do you have to be 100% vegan? No, you don't. And a little bit of flesh once or twice a week, not two, three times a day, probably will cause minimal damage. And some people may need to taper the flesh out of their diet gradually over months. That's fine, as long as you keep moving in that direction to let the meat exit from your diet completely. But Western medicine, we totally ignore this. No one mentions this to us in medical school. You graduate and all you know is get the patient diagnosed and then get them on the right medicine or send them off to the right surgeon or specialist, and you've done your job, doc. Well, that's business as usual. We're not taught about nutrition. It's not respected. It's a sissy science. I'm up in the operating room doing real medicine. But what are you doing up in that operating room, doctor? You're dealing with the infections and the infarctions and the amputations from what your patients are eating. You're all dealing with nutrition-based diseases. Plus, the young docs are eating the same burgers and pizzas in the cafeteria in the hospital, so they're not going to mention anything about the diet of the patient. Business as usual. Well, business as usual in healthcare is a losing proposition. The patient loses big time. They lose a chance to actually reverse their disease and get out from under their chronic disease. Every week with my patients, I get to lean across the desk and utter these wonderful words. How would you like to get rid of your diabetes? How would you like to get rid of your high blood pressure? How would you like to get rid of your lupus? My conventional colleagues never get to say those words. They say, they're all getting fatter and sicker. They're all going to have strokes. They're all going to have heart attacks. That's right, doctor. You don't talk to them about what they're eating. That's what you're going to see. But it doesn't have to be that way. Patient loses, the doctor loses this wonderful satisfaction of seeing their patients get healthy. I'm the happiest doctor I know. My patients get healthy right before my eyes. But my colleagues never see that. The healthcare system loses billions, even trillions of dollars doing these expensive bypasses and high-tech procedures. That money could be, so what? So the patient can leave the hospital and head right to the fast food joint and start eating more burgers and buffalo wings and to wind up back on the operating table. That money could be used to send kids to college, to fix the roads, put internet in everybody's houses. It's a waste of money. And despite all the medications and statins, these healthy people, ostensibly healthy, still go down with heart attacks and strokes. So every time that happens, we lose a creative, productive citizen. We also lose a taxpayer that we have to pick up their financial burden. The farmed animals lose big time. 80 billion innocent creatures get their throats cut every year because we like the way their flesh tastes. And the planet loses. Large-scale animal agriculture is the main driving force why we are cutting down the forests, sucking our rivers dry, eroding our soils, and destroying our children's future. This can't go on. Business as usual has to change. When I talk to my colleagues about this, they say, look, that's all very nice, but I don't know anything about nutrition. I don't get paid to do this counseling. I don't have time to do this counseling. Well, the good news is, doctor, you don't have to do this counseling. There are plant-based nutritionists galore, plant-based dietitians in every city where I give this lecture. I tell them they don't have to be in the same building with you, the same city with you. They're just anywhere in the same state where their license is valid. Make friends with this person. And before you let your patient leave the clinic, I say, before you leave, I want you to contact Ms. Smith, Ms. Jones, Mr. Wilson, and talk to them about plant-based nutrition. They're going to talk about what to eat. They're going to show you videos. They're going to give you handouts. They may take you shopping. You eat like they're telling you, and then you come back and see me in a month. Let's see if you're not leaner and healthier, and we can talk about getting you off some of these medications. This is what we did at True North, and as a result, we established a new treatment model that I'm trying to establish with the young doctors. And basically, I tell them when you're in your clinic, don't rock the boat when it comes to you're still a medical student and you're still in an outpatient clinic. Don't get in big fights with the professors. But once you're out in your own practice and you can make your own rules there, join up with a plant-based dietitian, even by telemedicine, and and again, bring her or him onto your treatment team. So the patient gets the benefit of professional counseling on a plant-based level. And we've been keeping the dietitian at arm's length as an afterthought. I'm saying she belongs on the primary care treatment team. And if you do that, your patient's going to get healthier, and costs are going to go down. I've recently joined a clinic in Victoria, British Columbia, and that's exactly the model they have. Everyone sees the doctor on staff there, and the next stop is the plant-based dietitian. And we're seeing wonderful changes from people who can follow this dietary pattern. So, what are the young doctors to do? Because they're not being taught this in medical school. I tell them until it is, and we're working to get plant-based nutrition incorporated into the medical curriculum. We're really working actively to do that, and you can help us do this. But until that happy day comes, I say it's up to the doctor. Educate thyself. Where do you get it? Fortunately, there's plenty of good information available on plant-based nutrition. Go on the website of plantritionuniversity.com, .org. There's dozens and dozens of courses free for the taking to help you institute plant-based nutrition into your medical practice at any stage in the life cycle. The University of Winchester in the UK has a wonderful online course of 6 weeks on plant-based nutrition. I took it and learned a ton. I invite the young docs to learn this. There's wonderful textbooks now on plant-based nutrition and clinical practice. It should be on every doctor's shelf. There's now a medical journal, the International Journal of Disease Reversal. The reversing disease, it's a thing, reversing disease. And it's a free journal. I invite the young docs and the old docs to subscribe to this journal. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine is very pro-plant-based, and they have wonderful courses available in plant-based nutrition. There's plenty of low-hanging fruit. And incorporating plant-based nutrition is the key to truly healing your patient or just managing their disease. Cynics say, well, Americans aren't going to change what they eat. They will change. They're tired of being obese and sick. They will change their diet. And I tell the young docs, if you don't incorporate nutrition into your understanding of medicine, then you're condemning yourself to be like the blind men and the elephant, the medical version of that, where every specialist has a different hold of the medical elephant, and the cardiologist is in their cubicle treating the clogged arteries, and the endocrinologist is in her cubicle treating the diabetes, and the gastroenterologist is in his cubicle treating the Crohn's disease. They don't realize they're all treating the same problem. It's what the patient is eating. It's the food, it's the food, it's the food. And the tragedy of what they're missing is if they get their folks on plant-based diets, these diseases go away. It's the most important advance in medicine. Now, people say, well, listen, it's a cultural thing. I'm not going to tell some patient from South India or from Mexico what they ought to be eating. There's real cultural barriers. Yeah, that can be an issue, but most ethnic cultures have a long tradition of healthy plant-based food. The Italian folks know how to make pasta primavera with vegetables and mushrooms instead of meatballs. The South Indian folks can make all these wonderful plant-based curries and tikka masalas. The Hispanic folks can make plant-based bean tacos and enchiladas. The folks from South Asia make all these wonderful plant-based noodle dishes. Well, it's expensive to eat this way. No, it's not. That's a myth. The staple foods that provide the most protein and calories are cheap. Rice and beans and potatoes are cheap. You can buy a 10-pound bag of rice for a little over $6.50. 10-pound bags of lentils, a little over $12. 2 cups of rice, 2 cups of lentils will give you almost 50 grams of protein. It's enough for any healthy adult. And with a little love and understanding, you can overcome resistance at home by bringing these skeptical family members into the food preparing process. So we're at the end. I know it's been a lot of stuff, but they say once you look behind the curtain, you can't pretend you don't know what's behind the curtain. And I've been trying to tear this curtain down. So when I lecture to the medical students and the residents, I ask them at this point a provocative question. Knowing how reversible these diseases are with a whole food plant-based diet and a healthy lifestyle, you want to heal these patients or you just want to manage their chronic disease. If you're just going to manage their chronic disease, you'll leave medicine. They're all going to get sicker and get their heart attacks and strokes. You want to heal them, then get real, doctor. I tell them, consider me a scout from the front lines of medical care. And I'm reporting back to you, fresh troops coming into the fray with the most important message. It's the food. It's been the food all along. And most importantly, these are reversible diseases. And a plant predominant diet is the key to this reversal. And if you want to learn more, go to movingmedforward.org, not com. So if you want to help us, we could sure use some help. It's expensive to give these lectures and travel around the country. We are a 501c3 organization. We could certainly use your help. Go to movingmedforward.org. The plant-based wave is breaking. I tell these young docs, line up your surfboard, learn about plant-based nutrition, and you'll become the happiest doctor you know. I'm the happiest doctor I know. Every doctor can get this joy of seeing their patients become truly healthy. So this is how I put nutrition to work in clinical practice, and hopefully doctors everywhere are getting this message. So I know it's been a lot of material, but if you're still awake, I'll be glad to entertain any questions. Thank you for your attention and healthy eating to you all.
I'm gonna need you to come up to this little white stand and speak into it and look at him, and he'll be able to see you. So, would anybody like to come up? Come on up.
Thank you so much.
Here, come over here.
Yeah.
So he can hear you better here.
Sorry, I didn't catch the name of the author of the book. Goodbye.
Autoimmunity. Right. Her name is Dr. Brooke Goldner, last name Goldner. Dr. Brooke, Brooke Goldner, MD. Goodbye autoimmune disease. Just Google goodbye autoimmune disease. You'll see it.
Second question. If I wanted to go on a retreat to really immerse myself in this and be taken care of with all the chopping and dicing, can you have a list of places that one can go for 2 weeks or 1 week to do this? Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. There's some wonderful organizations doing this. I don't know if you can see if I put it in the chat. I don't know if you can see this, but Google these names here. Google Rip Esselstyn. Let's see here. Rip Esselstyn's Plant Strong. They have these wonderful retreats. Plant Strong. I think it's .com. Go to the Plantrition Project. They have retreats. Nutrition Project .org. Go to True North. Spend 2 weeks at True North. You'll learn a thing or two. Let's see. So start with those three, but just do a search for plant-based retreats. And you'll see there's wonderful there. They have them in Costa Rica. They have them around the world. But start with these three, and you'll find lots of support.
Thank you so much.
And Dr. Klaper, we have a lending library here in our club, and we have a Goodbye Lupus book by Brooke Goldner. So
Well, yeah.
go see Eston. She can show you. Take it out. Oh, perfect. Wonderful. All right. Would anybody else like to speak to Dr. Klaper? Come on up.
Well, you get your aerobic exercise in at the same time. So great, you get a twofer.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep. Right in front of the white. There you go.
Hi.
I would like to know how your colleagues, the young doctors, are responding to your talks. Do you feel hopeful? Because I know when I'm talking to my doctors, as nice as they may be, they're not making many changes. They try not to be condescending, but I'm wondering if you're seeing progress, how things are going as you're making your movement. And thank you for the work that you do. May you be blessed as you're blessed to so many. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Very
good news. I've got good news. It's 2025, it's the 21st century, and these students, pun intended, are hungry for this knowledge. They know that standard medicine is just treating symptoms. They want more than that. They want to be true healers. And the word's out. In every medical school class that I lecture, at least 20–30% of the students have seen a film called Forks Over Knives. If you have not seen this film, please Google the website, forksovernKnives.com. Go to the website, see this movie. It's right on the website. And you will see people with the standard diseases, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, eating a plant-based diet, and they transform right before your eyes and into lean, healthy people with get rid of their medications. Well, so many of the young docs, they've seen Forks Over Knives. They've seen a film called Cowspiracy. They've seen Seaspiracy. If you're still a fish eater, please see a film called Seaspiracy. It will disabuse you. Seaspiracy. Spiracy. I think that's right. Um, and it will help you kick the fish habit there. So the students, the word's out. The fact that they're sitting in my lecture all say they've caught wind that something's up here about it, and so you can't unring the bell. Once they've heard the lecture and once they've seen Forks Over Knives, it changes. The philosopher Goethe said, "What you know about, you see." Once you know about something, you start seeing it everywhere. And with these young students, they start seeing it, and they're aware of disease reversal as an entity. So the good news is that we're trying to graduate a whole new generation of nutrition-aware young doctors and nurses and dentists and physical therapists and occupational. The pharmacists, they all need this information. They're all dealing with people with nutrition-based diseases. So I lecture the nurses and the pharmacists and the dentists, and it changes them. And the word's getting out there, and the doctors who don't recognize the importance of applied nutrition are going to be left behind. The patients are going to migrate. The word gets out. People, gee, Phyllis, you're looking really good. Well, I found this new doctor who put me on a plain strong diet, and wow, what a difference it makes. Oh, what's that doctor's name? And the public will start changing. And so spread the word. You play a role here too. But most important thing you can do is the old Nike commercials. Just do it. When you change your diet, you embark upon a sacred journey. And I really want to talk to you for a minute about that sacred journey. We're talking about saving your life. We're talking about avoiding a stroke, talking about avoiding a heart attack. Without being scary and grim, let me just point out the obvious. God forbid you get a heart attack, you get a stroke. It's only you in that hospital bed. It's not your daughter-in-law, it's not your spouse, it's not the people at work, it's not the people next door, it's you. Every healthy plant-based meal will clean out your arteries and make you healthier. But every time you go with the meat and the cheese and the oils and the sugars and the crappy restaurant food, you're hurting yourself. And your body is never not looking. There's no fooling your body. You can't tell your body, look over here and eat a cheeseburger there. What was that? I didn't do anything. I showed you, your body knows, your arteries know. I showed you what happens to your bloodstream. Shakespeare should have said, to thine own health be true. Dr. Klaper says, thine own health be true. And so you're talking about getting yourself healthier and avoiding stroke and staying out of the clutches of people like me. but the people around you may not understand. They probably won't. And to many of them, this is threatening. And if you make a big show of it, oh, I'm eating plant-based now. I'm going to get myself healthy. I don't eat that stuff anymore. That's painting a big bullseye on your forehead. And you're just inviting all the sniping from your cynical relatives and the neighbors. And, oh, yeah, you're eating that rabbit food. Oh, I had a friend who tried to do that. They get all weak and sick. Don't even open the door to that. Just do it yourself. People will notice as the weeks go by and the weight comes off and your eyes get bright. Hey, you're looking good these days. What are you doing? Let them ask, but don't go waving this around. It's a sacred journey. Just embark upon it with the sanctity it deserves and feed your body the fuel that was designed to run on. And it will do the rest. You will reap the benefits without gathering a lot of static in there. So just you're grown men and women, okay? It's nobody's business what you order for lunch, all right? And, well, if you're out in a restaurant and you order the vegetable, the bean chili instead of the beef chili, you order the salad instead of the short ribs. And, oh, what's wrong? You're not eating the. Uh, there, a couple of phrases will get you out of that. Just say, works for me. That's all you have to say. You don't owe anybody any explanations. You don't owe any apologies. You're a grown woman. This is what you've decided to eat. And another phrase of power is that cheese plate goes by. No, thank you. And just let it go by. Okay? If Aunt Mary gets her nose bent out of joint because you didn't eat her cheese souffle, she'll get over it. Okay? She's not paying your medical bills. So put on your big girl panties, as they say, or big boy underwear there, and get on with it. Okay, we're talking about life and death here. We're talking about staying out of the hospital. So take this message with the serious it deserves, but also have fun with it. The food tastes great, and you can eat all you want. And there's no carb counting or calorie counting. Just eat, my children, and your body will benefit. Your whole life will benefit from it. So embark upon this journey with joy and sanctity.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you and thank you for taking all this time with us, Dr. Klaper. Be well. You're making us well, and we're going to just go do it.
All right. Good for you guys. All the best to you. I wish you long, healthy, happy lives. Bye-bye.